Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and a Book. My name is William Hemsworth. It is great to be with you all again this week here on Elevation Radio. I'm so excited to have my guest. He's a Hall of Fame broadcaster, best-selling author, and award-winning blogger, Tony Agnesi. He's a master storyteller, inspirational speaker. Tony, how are you doing today?
William, it's great to see your face. Always great to talk with you. Always enjoy when we get together.
Oh, the same here. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Like I said off air, Coffee and a Book is just a program where I talk about we get together, we just talk about faith and we talk about love of writing, the books. So it's just a fun time. So I'm glad to have you on.
No, it's great to be here.
So how are things going over there in Ohio?
Same thing. Most of the things that we're doing are modified because 19 pandemic. I'm sitting here in my basement of my house, which is my office that, I used to come down here on Saturday mornings with a cup of coffee and work on writing. And now I'm here every day. So I'm getting used to working out of my home. And it's been very productive because you can kind of, mold things that you only have to dress from here up. That's the other thing I found, you can leave your slippers on or whatever. So that's been nice. But no, I've got two books in the works that I'm working on. And I've, committed myself the first of the year to really concentrate on getting those books out. The first book is entitled To Have a Father. And it's about fatherhood, which is really under attack here in the United States. William, we have 24 million kids out there without a father figure in the household. It's a huge number. In the African-American community, it's almost 80% of households have no father figure. And so where do young boys learn their male study? They learn on the street. A 12-year-old learns from a 14-year-old who learns from a 16-year-old. So this crisis in fatherhood causes a lot of things to happen. It causes poor school grades, incarceration, teen pregnancy, use of drugs and alcohol, and so forth. So the most important thing a guy can do really in his entire life, and to make it very simple, is to father his children. And so that's what that book's about. We talk about authentic fatherhood from a Christian perspective, what the Bible teaches us about fatherhood and so forth. And it's really been fun researching it as well as, beginning writing on that book.
Well, that sounds fascinating. When do you expect to be finished with that book?
Well, my goal is to be finished by this fall. I hope to have it out in August or September of this year.
Great. Now, you gave us some background on that book that you're writing. What was the catalyst to get you start thinking about that book?
Well, I've been working for about the last 28 years with the local pregnancy center, William, the Embrace Clinic and Care Center here in Ohio. And, my observation always was that a car would pull up and a young gal would get out and she would go in to get services, whether it be counseling, a pregnancy testing, ultrasound, counseling, and so forth. But her boyfriend or husband or whatever would sit in the car and listen to the radio and smoke cigarettes and wait for her to come back out. And he said, wouldn't it be great, if we went out and grabbed that guy and brought him in and talked a little bit about what it means to be a father. And it started a group called First and 10, which later has been called Steadfast Fathers. And so it started out that way. A group of men would go into the center, volunteers, and would meet with the guys who had dropped off their wife or girlfriend and so forth and talk to them about fatherhood. And with so few people having that male figure, having that, they don't know a whole lot about what it takes to be a father. And that developed into a group of classes, a set of classes that we call Steadfast Fathers. And what men will do is they will come to these classes for 6 straight Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights, whenever they're held. And most of the men that come to the classes are guys that are just out of prison or just out of drug rehab. They're estranged from their families, estranged from their wife and kids. They want to have a relationship with their children, but they just don't know how. They don't know what that means. And so we do these classes. Many of the courts in the state of Ohio will recognize the certificate they get at the end of those 6 weeks that they're at least trying, that they're trying to to understand what it means, to be a father. And so that kind of prompted me to do a lot of research. And there are many groups around the country, some really the Father Effect and other groups that are out there that really have done a wonderful job. And when you begin to take all of that body of research, William, and kind of pull it all together, it really gives you a view of what's going on. And it also gives you a Christian perspective on how to deal with it. And I'm certainly not the answer to that question, but we all, as Christian men, as Christian fathers who understand that importance, I think we all have to play a role in meeting these guys where they're at, whether it's at the gym playing basketball, or whether it's through some church activity or civic activity, or we get to know them in the schools, or we get to know them as I have many of these guys through drug rehab programs, or through the jail ministry that I do, and so forth, and just really get back to what I think is authentic fatherhood. And it's authentic fatherhood in the Christian perspective. And the Bible gives us a lot of reasons why that's important.
Can you give us a couple of those reasons?
A couple what again?
Can you give us a couple of those reasons from Scripture?
I don't have anything in front of me. I have file folders full of reasons, but I don't have anything in front of me, to be honest.
Oh, it's all right.
I actually wasn't prepared to talk about the new books as opposed to some of the ones that are already out.
Oh, it's okay. We were just talking about it, so I thought I would ask.
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I'd have thought of it in advance.
It's okay. So we'll keep an eye out for that book out in the fall. Mm-hmm. Now, Tony, I know you do a lot of speaking, and I followed you on Facebook for quite a while, LinkedIn, social media. You've done a lot of speaking, and obviously COVID hits. How has your faith sustained you through this time, and how is that speaking? How's the speaking looking going forward right now?
Well, those are great questions, William. I think I shared with you in the past that. I had a bunch of talks during Lent in 2020. I had 8 different talks, men's conferences, women's conferences, both Catholic and Protestant. I speak anywhere that somebody will invite me to speak about Jesus, I'm there. And so I had these all scheduled. And one by one, I spoke in Arizona, right there in your home state, in mid-February, to a wonderful group up in Payson, Arizona. Big crowd, very, very warm, friendly folks. They invited my wife and I to move there. That's how friendly they were. And I spoke in Ohio at a parish in a small town in Doylestown, Ohio. We had the biggest crowd they've had in a long time, and just had a lot of fun with that group. And then COVID hit and everything got canceled. So I've talked to other Catholic speakers, and, we're all faced with the same thing, speakers in general. I've done a couple of virtual talks. I did a virtual talk for a parish in Akron, Ohio, St. Sebastian's Parish. And that virtual talk went very well. I was surprised. At that time, people, well, are people really going to tune in? Or are they going to go on their computers to watch the talk and so forth? Mm-hmm. We had over 600 people that night tune in for the talk. And it was under the heading of Theology on the Rocks, which is that this parish sponsors. And I did another one for a group from group of hospitals through their senior programs. A lot of senior citizens are not only are they kind of in nursing homes and assisted living facilities and so forth, but because of the rules and not allowed to have people come in because of COVID. They're not seeing family members, friends, loved ones, daughters, sons. A lot of loneliness there and so forth. So it was an opportunity to speak and at least have them feel and see and touch and stay in touch with their faith as well. And so that's what sustained me through this. I talk to people, and I'm sure you have too, William, with your programs. And one of two things is happening here. Either people's faith is getting greater, their spirituality is increasing, their generosity is increasing, their care of those people that are unemployed or having a tough time putting food on the table and so forth. My wife and I volunteer at the St. Vincent de Paul food pantry, and we're seeing volunteers there we've never seen before. And it's just wonderful to see young families, some of which bring their kids with them. Teenage kids are helping to pack groceries or whatever. And it's a wonderful experience. On the other hand, at the far end of that, we have another group of people who, because there were no live church services and so forth, have kind of drifted away. And I just read an article here this afternoon that said, 36% aren't coming back.
Wow.
At least in the polls among those people between the ages of 18 and 34. So young people are not returning to the faith. So you have these two polar ends. Those people like us who couldn't wait to get back to church, who couldn't wait to get back to the sacraments.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this other group who has just kind of fallen away because of, the habit of not attending. That group in the middle is the one that I'm most concerned with, William. That's the group of people that were church attending, most of them not on a weekly basis, from time to time. I always I have a friend that used to call them hatch 'em, match 'em, dispatch 'em Christians and Catholics. We go to baptisms, weddings, and funerals. And the only time you see them in church is, in front of a bride or behind a casket. So we have that group. But we have a lot of people in there that, are just kind of in the middle. And as church communities, as parishes and churches, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, it doesn't matter. We've got to get people back into the pews. And that's the group from which we're going to have to really work hard once things open up again and we can freely move about and so forth, that we can do it. So my faith and my desire to evangelize and bring people to Jesus has increased over the pandemic rather than decreased. And I know from what you and I have talked about, yours has too, but there's a lot of people that are on the other end of that extreme, and we need to reach out to them and let them know that when it comes to our salvation, nothing has changed.
Right. Well, amen. Let's transition to your writing, Tony, and thank you for sharing those words about your faith. How did you get started in writing?
Well, I'm not much of a writer. I'm not much of a writer. Growing up, I was always considered to be a wonderful storyteller. And my mom was a storyteller. My grandma was a storyteller. And so throughout my entire career and in management for the last 40 years, I've taught through storytelling. We had a great storyteller in Jesus who, through the parables, communicated. And the reason we remember the parables that Jesus taught is because each of them had a message, had a reason, and so forth. And so if you can teach through storytelling, people remember the story. They also then remember the lesson that you taught. But I was never much of a writer. I may have shared this story with you a couple of years ago when I was off to college my freshman year, my first English class. I wrote my first paper, and it came back with more red ink than black ink, and a great big F at the top, and a note from the college professor that says, "You'll never write above a 5th grade level." And so that'll stunt your writing right there.
Wow.
So I did the minimal amount of writing to get through college. And in 2012, I had so many people saying, "Tony, your stories are so good. You need to document them. You need to write them down." And so I began doing that, and I wrote 4 or 5 stories. I gave them to a retired English professor friend of mine who I go to daily mass with. And I said, "Barb, would you read these over and tell me what you think?" And she said, "Sure." And she read them over. I said, "What'd you think?" She says, "Oh, these are wonderful, wonderful stories, Tony." I said, "Well, more importantly, what level do I write at?" And she said, "About 6th grade." So in 40 years, I was up a grade. One of those stories, reflections I wrote was entitled "When My Children Have Lost the Faith." And it really is an article about the fact that many devout Christians that are in the church every week, devout Catholics that are daily mass goers and so forth, their adult children have drifted away from the faith. They no longer attend church. They no longer... They call themselves Christian or Catholics. We refer to them as just, by name only, cultural Catholicism. I'm Catholic because grandma was Catholic, or I'm a Presbyterian because grandma was a Presbyterian, but really don't attend and so forth. Children aren't being baptized and so forth. And I wrote that article, and it was picked up by Shalom Tidings magazine down in Texas, and they ran it. And I had a number of parishes run it in their weekly church bulletin. And what I really discovered was that there were it was one of the topics that wasn't talked about much. There are these devout people in the pews every week, and their children are no longer followers of Jesus Christ, and their grandchildren are not hearing the story of Jesus and our salvation and redemption of his death and rising on, on Easter Sunday and so forth. Christmas has become Santa Claus and reindeers, and Easter has become chocolate and Easter bunnies, and we've lost that message of Christianity. And so because of that, I wanted to share, my own children's story and how they've drifted away from the faith, and the overwhelming desire I had that my grandchildren would know that grandma and grandpa were followers of Jesus Christ, and that we took our faith very seriously, and it sustained our marriage. Now we've been married 48 years. We've been together, I think 5 or 6 years before that, 54 years.
Wow, congratulations.
And it has kept us strong in our relationship with each other, because Jesus is at the center of our relationship and has been, William, since the very beginning. And so I wanted to pass along to my grandchildren some of my stories of faith, and that was the motivation that started me writing. And from 2012 to 2016, I wrote hundreds of reflections, of which almost 300 of them are in my books. And we modified them for the books. Each reflection that I write has a piece of scripture that's associated with what I'm writing about. And then and then at the end are some questions to reflect on. For example, this past weekend, the gospel was about Jesus going and seeing the fishermen and bringing Andrew, James, and John, bringing them in by, I will make you fishers of men. And my reflection that I wrote a number of years ago was, why did Jesus pick fishermen to be his apostles? And I give about why I think he picked fishermen. They know how to catch the fish. They know how to change the bait. They know, fish fast, fish slow. They methods of fishing, and you quite honest evangelization the same way as you fish. They got things started, and I sent off my first book to my editor, and it came back with more red ink than black ink. As a matter of fact, she sent me an email that said, Tony, I bled all over your book. And I didn't know.
Give me 1 second. I think I lost you, so I'm going to pause it.
A real joy to work and get them together.
That's right. Now, in addition to writing, and speaking, you're busy with podcasts and radio. You tell us about your other radio programs. You have the Storytellers. You have 5 Minutes with Tony. How are those going?
They're good. The Storytellers program, we just completed our 3rd season. It runs on television and radio, and I should say on video and radio. It runs on the Fiat Ministry Network. I know you've done some things with Fiat, and there are 15 episodes here in the 3rd season. That finished up the end of the year. The radio version of it runs until mid-February, I think the 21st of February. And then, we usually take a period of time off, especially in the summer months, and then come back with a new series. It's in its 3rd. We just finished its 3rd year. It's been very fun to do. I've met a lot of great people and interviewed a lot of wonderful Christians along the way, and that's always been fun. My 5 Minutes with Tony started out as a radio podcast, and it's available wherever you can get your podcasts. And Breadbox Media, which is the Catholic podcasting site, has carried it, and it's on my website and so forth. Um, what has happened, we decided to take 5 Minutes with Tony as a podcast and turn it into a video podcast. And so we now have 5 Minutes with Tony on YouTube. We've got about 60 of them that we've done so far, and there are about 200 that we've identified that we want to do. And then, of course, write some new ones as we go along. So those posted on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, those three platforms, twice a week. And then we are on hiatus with those right now since I'm in the middle of a writing project. I'm trying to, you have to get rid of a few things to make room for some other things. And we'll bring that back and probably do another 50 or so when we get through with the book, and then again next year. So looking forward to those. So both the podcast and the radio show are available on my YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Tony Agnesi. And they're also available on Facebook and Instagram at Instagram TV and Facebook Live. And then the 5 Minutes with Tony, there are a bunch of those up. You could really go up there. They're under 5 minutes each. There's, like I say, about 60 of them posted on YouTube. And the radio programs, not only this season, but the previous seasons, we've had some wonderful guests over our 3 seasons of shows.
Great. And Tony, what's your website? Because I know you have a lot of, you have everything going into your website. They can check out everything there. What's your website name?
Yeah, if they go to TonyAgnesi.com, it's TonyAgnesi, like Agnes with an I on the end, Agnesi.com. On there, you'll find out about my speaking and where I'm at and where I'm going to be speaking. A lot of them are videotaped, and you can actually tune in and see them. About my books, and all 3 of my books are available there through the store on my website. And you can get to any of my blogs. There's almost 500 blog posts that are evergreen. You can get to my podcast, my video. A lot of multimedia on there. For example, interviews I've done with you are posted on my website. Interviews I've done on radio and television around the country are all up there. That sometimes people like tuning in and seeing, that I had more hair several years ago, or it was actually black and not gray, and so forth. So they're all up there. It's just a wealth of information. You spend a lot of time there, and obviously everything is free for the asking. Just check it out.
Right. And before we came on air, you said you had a special going on your books.
Yeah, I do. And I wanted to make sure that since we were doing a show about books, that I offered them up. I have 3 books out. I'll go through them real quick. The first book is called A Storyteller's Guide to a Grace-Filled Life. Wouldn't you love to have a grace-filled life? Hail Mary, full of grace. And, Jesus was full of grace. And so I think, wouldn't it be great to be full of grace? Well, this talks about how we get grace to come to us. And all of these reflections are about God's grace. And, there's an infinite amount of grace out there. We just have to ask for it. And Jesus, our Lord, will give it to us in terms of grace. That book was my first one. The second one, a year later, was A Storyteller's Guide to Joyful Service. 2 key things there. One is joyful as service. People don't realize that true joy comes from serving others. And the more we serve others, the more we become joyful. And there's a difference between happiness and joy. Some of the most joyful people I know are on their deathbeds or struggling through all sorts of problems, but they're joyful because they have the Lord in their life. The subtitle of this one is Turning Your Misery into Ministry. And over the years, William, what I have found, the best drug counselors are recovering drug addicts. The best alcohol counselors are AA members. The man and woman raising money for autism have an autistic child. The woman visiting a cancer patient in the hospital is a cancer survivor. The guy giving a homeless man a pair of boots on the bridge was once homeless himself. The family that brings a meal to a needy family at Christmas time is paying it forward because somebody did that for them years ago. And so that's what that book is about. And then the third book was originally titled The Lost Stories. It was that we had lost a bunch of stories. I found them on a hard drive almost purely by accident. We put them into a third book, and I was told rather than the the Lost Stories, just have it be volume 2 of A Storyteller's Guide. So you can get all 3 books online. Normally, together they'd be about $36. We offer them for $30. But if you went online and you put in the discount code, the coupon code, bundle 2021, bundle in this year 2021, it'll take another 20% off of that discount. And so you get all 3 books for $24, which is about $8 a piece. They're $12.99 on Amazon. So it's a really good savings. Or if you want to just try one of the books, if you put save 15 in the discount coupon, it'll take 15% off on your book order that you would make. So we're going to offer that to the viewers and listeners as that are book readers that enjoy books. That if you'd like to read some of these reflections, a lot of them are funny, a lot of them are fun, but they're all tied to scripture, and they all give you something to think about at the end because we put some questions of reflections. I had one guy tell me, William said, these are great bathroom books. He says, you read one story each trip, and in a couple of months you've read a book. And a lot of people don't read a book in a year, so it's a good way to do it.
Oh, that is funny. No, the books are great, guys. You will really enjoy them. So I encourage you to visit Tony's website at tonyagnesi.com. Tony, I thank you so much for joining me today on Coffee and a Book. God bless you and your ministry.
Oh, this has been fun. Like I say, I always enjoy being with you, William, and to your audience and to your listeners. We're going to get through this COVID thing, get back and attend the church of your choice, and really become more aware of God's in your life. And I think you're going to have a wonderful, wonderful life moving forward. William, God bless you. Thank you so much for being with us. God bless your ministry, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much, my friend. I thank you so much for coming on. God bless.